your good plays are always going to be good, but just avoid the disastrous decisions. And that's what's hurt. That is what has hurt Harris and Pryor on occasion in the past. Is Harris ready to go into this building on this stage and give his Hurricanes a chance to compete, in your opinion?
Scott, I think he is. I'm not sure if his offensive line is. I think the offensive line Miami has is big and more athletic than it's been in the past, but it's still really unproven. And they're going to go up against an outstanding defensive line at Ohio State. I was at Marshall this week and talked to Doc Holliday, the head coach there, and they just played Ohio State. And Doc Holliday also was on the Florida staff that beat Ohio State in the BCS title game a few years ago. He said this Ohio State team is much better than the one that played for the title a couple of years ago. He said the difference in speed in the linebackers is dramatic. He said the offensive line is much more athletic. These are things that were supposedly the Ohio State's Achilles heel. And he said this team could run without any of those Florida teams. So I think people who think that they're overrated and just on a bunch of hype are going to find out probably a different story this season.
I have a hard time thinking Penn State that really couldn't run it for much of the game against Youngstown is going to go down to Tuscaloosa and do much against that really, really stout Alabama defense. Is there anything you got to refute that?
I don't. I like Evan Royster. I think he's a good, solid college running back, but he's struggled in big games, and he needs to run wild against a defense, Nick Saban's defenses, that really don't give up that kind of stuff. It's a bad spot for Penn State. If they can keep it within 2 touchdowns, I think that's a good thing.
And it's funny how this Michigan-Notre Dame game, I don't want to say it's slipping through the cracks. It is not at all. We'll all pay attention to it. But it just strikes me, Bruce, that we're talking about 2 of the most storied programs in the history of the sport that have won as many games as anybody. Obviously, they're on the short list there. Neither's ranked, and we've got all this excitement about both because they beat Purdue and UConn. Does that strike you as just a little bit odd that these Titans enter with this infusion of excitement and enthusiasm because they just beat the Boilermakers and the Huskies?
I think it's because they're curiosities. I mean, everyone I know is on the Brian Kelly bandwagon. I think it's only a matter of time. I think they have, I think they underachieved under Charlie White. So on the other side, you have Rich Rodriguez, who's a really interesting storyline to see, is he going to survive this year? He's got this fantastic athlete, Denard Robinson, who looked amazing last week. You just wonder, can Denard Robinson hold up and stay healthy for the workload they're putting on him? And will the Michigan defense be exposed for what it was last year? And so you have that going up against the Brian Kelly offense that is going to be pretty good. I think a lot of people are curious to see who's close to legitimate now and who's just going to be maybe a 6-6 kind of team like they have been, last year.
Bruce, final question. There's so many games that have gotten all the attention. Is there any that we haven't mentioned that you're particularly interested in, and if so, a reason why?
I am curious about the game tonight, Auburn and Mississippi State. I feel like you got a guy in Cam Newton who had a spectacular debut. He's going up against Dan Mullen, the Mississippi State coach who was at Florida, knows him really well. A lot of people thought Cam Newton may end up playing for him. So this is a big road game. I think Mississippi State's a pretty good team. I want to see how Cam Newton does. If he's going to be anywhere near as spectacular as he was last week, if he can consistently do it, I think there's a team we're going to have to keep an eye on.
I know that we talked about him very, very early on in the spring, and you talked about can he avoid making the big mistake? He'll make big plays, just has to avoid making them for both sides. Bruce, pleasure as always. Look forward to talking to you next week after we know how this week played out. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
Be well. Bruce and all today's guests, if you review the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, try a new Subway double bacon and cheese omelet on toasty football, flat bread for breakfast, your absolute favorite sub to go. Get back to this AJ Green topic moving forward. A lot of response already. Again, you're selling his jersey, you're making money off it. I'm talking pennies on the dollar. If there's a trust that he gets the money in the future, you have to figure it out. You can't print money off his hard work and not let him participate in it. Coming up next, NFL's back. I'll give you my Super Bowl pick next on ESPN Radio.
Hey, Mike Golick here for Tabasco brand Chipotle sauce. Now, there's an unwritten rule in football. Don't pour it on when the game's decided.